Hi, in this video, we're going to discuss how to create a test or quiz in Schoology. So I'm in a course, and that's where you would give the quiz or test to a student where they could access it to get the grade. So I'm going to pick a folder. I'm going to go into this Form Guru path. So you can put it really anywhere. You could put it in the top level of the course or in a specific folder. It's up to you. So you go to Add Materials and choose the third option, Add Test/Quiz. Okay, so they treat test and quiz as equivalent. There is really no difference between those words. I think they just put it there so people could find if they're looking for a quiz or a test. So I'm going to give it a title. Okay, so you might have a specific title you want to give it to make sure that in your gradebook you can tell the quiz apart from another quiz somewhere later. You want to give it a due date because if you're syncing with eSchool Plus, and this is something that you want to have to go to eSchool Plus, you're going to need that date. In fact, if you wanted to autocorrect the quiz or test, which is a huge reason why people use Schoology, because you can put questions in that are automatically corrected, you will need a due date in there as well. Here's where the point value is displayed. So this is sort of a placeholder. I'm thinking it's going to be 20 points, but after I add all my questions, I might actually come back and change this if I added more questions than say I intended. I need to click on a category, and I had already set up my class. So I have these categories already created. So I'm going to pick on quiz. If you're syncing with eSchool Plus, you want to make sure that you put it on the alpha scale, the regular courses scale, because that is what's being used in eSchool. You can individually assign a quiz to a specific student. Published means that they can see that there is a quiz there, but there's another setting later on I'm going to show you where you can control whether they can actually take the quiz. So I'm going to leave it published that they know there's going to be a quiz at some point. Grade stats means that when students are done, they can see how other students have generally done on the quiz. You can have a comment. Students can leave a comment. I'm going to disable that. And then when I'm done with this, I can come back to this area and I can copy this quiz to another course, for example. So I'm going to click on Create. And I'm not really going to focus on adding questions here. I'm going to focus on the settings. So I'm going to click on that because this is kind of interesting the way that you can make quizzes behave. So if this is a formative test where, or formative assessment where I just want to see how students are doing, or maybe even something to help them learn a concept through, maybe they had a little bit of an introduction, but this might help them learn by going through some sample problems, for example. I can set it up accordingly. So in my instructions, I can just say, you will have 3 attempts, or you have 3 attempts for this quiz. The highest grade will be recorded. Okay, so this is foreshadowing a couple of the settings that I have later on. Just a quick note that this is your WYSIWYG tool, so you can put links, all kinds of stuff here. You can even insert images or links or even equations or some of your resources. And then at the bottom here, you have attachments. So you have your form, your file, or your file, your link, your resource area, or even you can record the instructions either just by audio or with video. That might be helpful for particular learners. This is a setting that you want to pay attention to because this will enable your students to actually take the quiz. So you might get to a point where your students can see the quiz, but then they say, I can't take it, it won't let me. This is a setting you need to make sure is on enable when you want them to be able to take it. You can also choose that, say it's enabled now and forever, or until you disable it. Enable until a certain date and time, or maybe from a specific time to another time. So say you're not going to be with the students, but you want them to take the quiz. You could have it become available while you're not there and be disabled too. And you can see that when you choose that option, it has the from, and say this is 8 a.m. to maybe Saturday. Okay, actually that won't work because I had a due date of this when I set up the quiz. You got to keep that all in mind. Okay, so is there a time limit? And you might notice over here that when I go to these options, it displays what that option means. So you might want to have a time limit on it if you want. By default, I have it's an hour. And you may want to shy away from doing this at first until you get the feel for how quizzes work in your classroom. But this was just an example. Here's where I can set how many times that they can take the quiz. I can even have it on unlimited if you want some mastery. Want them to be able to master it. Here's where I choose grade by highest score. It could be highest, last score, or average score. Randomize will randomize the questions so that students aren't seeing the questions in the same order. It's helpful when students are sitting next to each other and taking the quiz online. Page breaks. You can have page breaks. So you can, basically that will have the questions on more than one page. If you want one question per page and then they have to click on next to get to the next question, you probably want that option. We have a language keyboard, and Spanish is the only one that's built in, where you can have a browser-based keyboard for your accent marks and so forth. Question review, you let the students review before they submit or not. It's up to you. Resumable, I'd probably put on yes, so that students can resume, say there was a power outage or an internet outage. And if it's set to no, it won't let them back in to finish the quiz. So I would probably put it on yes. And then view submissions. This is where you can customize whether they get feedback or not. So if you don't want them to get any feedback at the end, like they don't even know what they scored, you would click on no. If you want them to see that, okay, they got them all right or they got one wrong in their points, you can say yes. But if you want them to say the results plus, you can plug in the correct answers, or, with the correct answers, you have to indicate that when you're setting up the quiz. You could choose that. It's how you want them to use this tool. This printing options part is where you can set how many blank lines they get for short answer if you need to print this out for students instead of them taking it online. So I'm going to click on Save Changes. And then just a quick thing, the cogwheel over here is where you can get back to edit those options again. Okay, remember we were there before. Also, you can export the stats and print the test from here. So that's it. That's how you set up the quiz, and then we'll get into the quiz questions in another video.